Chapter 721, The Homeward Journey. Covering a large area, the Heavenly Knights sect looked really magnificent. The silver-colored mountain gates surrounding the whole mountain looked like two spiraling dragons and formed a picture of two dragons frolicking with a pearl. The head of the dragon was where the wide mountain gate was located. "It's quite splendid," Zhang Han commented with a nod and flew forward. After flying out of the woods and approaching the moat, he suddenly felt the energy released by the formations flowing out and the gravity increasing. Clatter! A middle-aged man at the God Realm late stage flew through the mountain gate at a high speed. When he saw Zhang Han, his eyes lit up. Before Zhang Han could say anything, he smiled and said, "Young lord, you are finally here." As he spoke, he took out a token with his right hand and waved it slightly. At this point, the onrushing water below Zhang Han slowed down gradually. Zhang Han pondered for a while and asked, "Are my parents staying in the sect?" "They are already in Hong Kong and have ordered Xiao, a talent from our sect, to look for you." The middle-aged man smiled and his eyes were filled with curiosity. Generally speaking, as long as one stepped on the river, he could sense whether the man had performed a formation or other spells. Since he could directly perceive a majority of spells, he was certain that the man in front of him was Zhang Han. Moreover, he shared plenty of similarities with young master. He planned to bring Zhang Han to visit the sect first and then inform Xiao to send Zhang Han safely to Hong Kong. Okay, fine. But he did not expect that as soon as he started speaking, Zhang Han chuckled with a nod and immediately turned around to leave. "Hey, wait. What are you going to do?" The middle-aged man was stunned and hurriedly tried to catch up with Zhang Han. "I need to go back home." Zhang Han responded. You'd better go back with Xiao. Please wait for a while in the sect and I can show you around. Besides, you have not been promoted to the Divine Realm stage, so you're likely to get into trouble if you wander around in the world lit. When will Xiao be back?" Zhang Han asked. "I'll inform him the moment I get back to the sect and it will take about 2 to 3 hours. He'll probably be back in an hour considering that he hasn't gone far." The middle-aged man replied. When he heard what he said, Zhang Han stopped. The middle-aged man added at this moment, "Moreover, the exits appear not only on Mount Jianfeng, but also in a few other places. You'll spend less time on the roads once Xia leads you back." As soon as he heard that it would save him time, Zhang Han nodded. "It's still early and I hope to arrive in Hong Kong by nightfall. It should be okay." The middle-aged man laughed as an idea came across his mind. He considered that young master's son was a bit impatient, which was detrimental to martial artists. After all, those who made great achievements must be calm rather than being impetuous. However, he did not know that Zhang Han was just eager to see his family as soon as possible. "This way please. My name is Jiang Bing and you can call me by my name." The middle-aged man took the lead in heading for the Heavenly Knights sect, passing by a 100-meter-long river. As he came to the gate of the Heavenly Knights sect, he looked up at the two magnificent dragons stretching along the mountain range. He recalled realizing how insignificant he felt when he first came here. In the face of young lord, who was here for the first time, he said emotionally at this time, "These two dragons, known to be high-end divine weapons as well as the formation I, have been refined by the head of the sect. Because of them, the Heavenly Knights sect lasted long and remained invincible while fighting against the Wind Snow School." Then, he turned his head to glance at Zhang Han, hoping to see shock and fear in this Grand Master's eyes. However, don't you have any ideas?" Jiang Bing's mouth trembled slightly and he asked in confusion when he saw Zhang Han's calm look. "Ideas, that sounds great," Zhang Han remarked. His comments showed that the dragons attracted his attention to some degree. But Jiang Bing had a weird feeling and could not help murmuring inwardly, "Why is young lord so different from what I imagined? I hope he's not a good-for-nothing. Let's go inside first, I'll take you to have a rest," Jiang Bing said and took the lead in walking in. Several parts of the mountain were covered by luxuriant plants and grass and were dotted with plenty of houses and several palaces. There were small rivers in all directions, bridges, pavilions and mansions on the top of the mountain. In particular, the spiritual chi was 10 times stronger than that in the normal places of the worldlet. Let me give you a brief introduction since it's your first time back to the sect. Jiang Bing smiled. All right. Zhang Han nodded. He found that it would take half an hour to reach the building on the mountain if he kept pace with Jiang Bing unhurriedly. Actually, as Jiang Bing came in, he crushed a gem to transmit his voice message to inform the disciples who had gone out. Now that they had nothing to do at this moment, Zhang Han followed him slowly. The Heavenly Knights sect used to be the #1 sect in the Kungzu world, but it no longer outshines the others now after decades of fighting against the Wind Snow School. Jiang Bing shook his head slightly and said, "There's no need to introduce Zhang Shenwang, he's your grandfather." "Yes," Zhang Han replied. He had heard of the name though he had never seen him before. "As for your parents, namely young master and his wife, they don't intervene in the affairs of the sect but are immersed in cultivating. In fact, they occupy the first position in the Heavenly Knights sect at present. Unlike other sects, our Heavenly Knights sect is relatively united and cohesive, which is similar to the style of the first generation of peak masters and elders. The man who is one level below them is Grand Elder Dongchen. He has always been following our head and takes a detached position in the Heavenly Knights sect. Now, only 5 elders remain. The 6 of them are all at the Heaven Realm stage. Those who are superior to them share the title of Protector. They've made significant contributions to the war that lasted for decades. In our heyday, more than 50 Protectors defended against the enemies together, but now, only 17 of them are alive, all of whom are at the Earth Realm stage and most of whom are at the Earth Peak stage. Hearing what he said, Zhang Han froze for a while. In consideration of the tremendous power of 6 Heaven Realm Masters and 17 Earth Realm experts, the Heavenly Knights sect did have a strong background. Although our Heavenly Knights sect looks like a huge mountain, it consists of 8 relatively flat peaks, whose masters are all at the Earth Realm stage. Among these peaks, 4 are in the south of the mountain, while the others are in the north. The experts in our Heavenly Knights sect often compete with each other, with the High Elders' support. Just as a saying goes, one thrives and survives under suffering and hardships and will wither if one is overly protected and contented with the current situation. Martial artists should be ambitious. You'll understand that in the future. In Jiang Bing's view, Zhang Han was a newcomer who knew nothing about the sect, so he gave him lengthy and detailed explanations. As for Zhang Han, he listened to him and nodded occasionally, which roused Jiang Bing's interest. The disciples inferior to the peak masters are supervisors, who have just broken through to the Earth Realm stage. They, holding the transitional posts, can lead teams to carry out assignments. Those who inherit peak masters' skills are considered as the chief disciples, while the elite disciples are the normal ones of the 8 peaks. By the way, apart from the people mentioned before, there is a group of promising disciples trained by the elders in person. However, they're small in number since the elders have a lot of things to do. The disciples outside the 8 peaks are only counted as nominal ones. Do you see the circular building area over there? He pointed to the distance. Zhang Han looked over and caught sight of a round building with well-equipped facilities. Nominal disciples belong to probationary forces and most of them are Grand Masters. As long as they pass the assessment through their own efforts, they are capable of becoming the 8 peak disciples, namely the elite disciples. However, each of them must make a hit within 3 years, provided that they are promoted to the Grand Master peak in 3 years. They can then become elite disciples. To be precise, with more than 1,000 nominal disciples, our Heavenly Knights sect has a total of over 5,000 people, but there were no less than 10,000 disciples in the past. If we don't take the secular disciples into consideration, the numbers will decline dramatically. Zhang Han chuckled. The sect was regarded as a regular one in the cultivation world. Except for its weak strength, there was nothing wrong with it. For instance, the Wind-Snow School had been totally destroyed, but the sect, in a state of disunity, did not take any effective measures. Without the Heaven-Earth formation, the sect might have been struck off. By right of his introduction, Zhang Han had an intuitive understanding of the Heavenly Knights sect. The two of them walked to the side of the circular building and met some people, who greeted Jiangbing and looked at Zhang Han with curiosity. Ahem, the disciples of the Heavenly Knights sect are too enthusiastic. Jiangbing smiled modestly. Of course, as a chief, I'm respected by them. Oh, you are obviously not far from the Earth Realm stage. Zhang Han responded with a chuckle. How do you know my real strength? I didn't tell you any details. Jiangbing suddenly froze. How is young master, inferior to the divine realm stage, able to sense me? But then as he took out the gem from his right pocket, his expression changed. After sensing for a while, he laughed. Wang Xiao is back. I didn't expect him to come back so soon. He, as a supervisor, gets along well with young master and will take you out of the Kung's world later. Frankly speaking, by virtue of your identity, you need to meet the peak masters and elders since you are here at the Heavenly Knights sect. However, considering that the gate of the small world is now open, I can't take the responsibility, so you may as well see them with young master. Okay. Zhang Han nodded, glanced at Jiangbing and said with a smile, thank you for informing me, Chief Jiang. You're welcome. Jiangbing waved his hand at Zhang Han. They walked into a yard and saw 7 people approaching quickly after sitting for only 10 minutes. Here they are. Wang Xiao, the one who led the group, let out a long sigh of relief when he saw Zhang Han. We've finally found you. Hello, young lord, I'm Wang Xiao. Hello. Zhang Han replied with a nod. How long have you been there? Shall we set off now or after lunch? Wang Xiao asked. I would like to set off now. Okay. After a few seconds, they set off. As for Jiangbing, he stood in the yard and stared at their backs without saying anything. After a while, he murmured, I don't feel anything. He seems like a common person, but he's somewhat special. Hey, I hope that young master's son won't damage young master's reputation. They left the Heavenly Knights sect and flew east. During this period, they all sized Zhang Han up curiously and felt somewhat confused. How was Zhang Han, a Grand Master, able to fly at such a high speed so easily? Wang Xiao, however, did not pay attention to these details. After flying for a while, he said with a smile, young master asked Grand Elder to defend Hong Kong, so Hong Kong is well protected for the time being. Don't worry. We should be able to arrive before nightfall. Okay. Zhang Han replied. Strong expectations flashed across his eyes. His parents were there. Now that I'm back, we can eventually reunite again. Home. Home was where his family was. Chapter 722, Reuniting. Young lord, young master once told me that he was worried about you and your sister when the gate of the small world closed. For you were not a martial artist at that time. To my surprise, you have almost reached the divine realm stage in less than 6 years. How awesome you are. Wang Xiao smiled and said in a casual tone. Obviously, he was a free and easy person and was not too bothered about trifling matters. You are giving me too much credit. Zhang Han responded freely. You're indeed a talent since it took you merely 6 years to reach the Grand Master peak. Another man with a long face said with a smile, we spent nearly 20 years trying to break through to the divine realm stage. Though most of us are under 30, we started cultivating at a very young age. That's right. A man with a flat-top haircut who was standing behind said, elder brother Xiao is the most formidable, ranking first among the disciples on Zai Peak. Tutored by the third elder, he also occupies the 3rd position among the younger generation. He's so powerful that all the people of the sect know him. Oh? Zhang Han glanced at Wang Xiao again. Judging from his expression, all the people present thought he was amazed. Even Wang Xia waved his hand modestly. In fact, those monsters are the most incredible. They do amaze us. How awesome they are. The others also sighed with emotion. Zhang Han glanced at them and chuckled. It seems that the talents from the Heavenly Knights sect are competent. Compared with the other martial artists in this world, they were capable masters. However, there would always be someone superior to them. Men of talent appeared in succession in the cultivation world and no one could be considered as the top expert. Moreover, talents still needed to grow unceasingly in order to enforce their strength. Young Lord will be a big shot in the future, occupying a place in the Heavenly Knights sect with his strength. Wang Xia laughed but still hesitated. After pondering for 3 seconds, he said, "Young Lord, I have to remind you of something because I get along well with young master. I hope you don't mind. Just go ahead. Since young master isn't here, you have the authority and we'll take orders from you. However, our Heavenly Knights sect advocates the principle of strength first. Although we own numerous resources, you cannot take them unscrupulously. After all, Grand Elder and the other elders are the meritorious heroes who struggled to seize power together with young master." Wang Xiao said slowly. He actually gave him a warning, which silenced the others present. They all wanted to see what kind of person Zhang Han was. "Oh." Zhang Han chuckled and said, "In fact, I have a certain number of spirit treasures, so I won't take anything from the Heavenly Knights sect. Besides, I won't come over again anytime soon, for I have to live outside to accompany my daughter." Ha ha ha. Wang Xia burst out laughing and said, "Even so, as young lord, you deserve to be provided with sufficient resources. I mean that even young master has to show regard for the feelings of others, that's all." After saying that, Wang Xia became a little curious again. "Young lord, do you have a daughter?" "Yes. You're married." I finally figured out why young master told me that he was holding his granddaughter over the telephone. Young master must be overjoyed. "Of course." Zhang Han smiled. His smile, the softness, pride and indulgence in his eyes, was solely for Meng Meng. "After we leave later." Wang Xia looked at the other people and said, "You should go to those sects as planned to learn about their recent situation and the Wind Snow School's plans for the other worldlets. If there's any trouble, you'd better inform me at once." "Senior brother, are you going to Hong Kong as well?" "I intend to join in the fun. Furthermore, now that Grand Elder also came over, I think some matters of the utmost concern will occur." Wang Xiao said and then kept silent. As for Zhang Han, he was certain that what would happen would meet his expectations. Perhaps the forces in the worldlet that supported the Li family, the He family, the Ge family, and the mystical fog sect were targeting the 2 divine objects on Mount New Moon. Among them, the most powerful one was the Wind Snow School. How could the disciples of this sect refuse to pocket the 2 divine objects? However, they were likely to get into trouble once they went there in the face of Grand Elder from the Heavenly Knights sect. "There's an exit in front of us, which is in the center of the lake," Wang Xiao said while looking ahead. "There are many exits in the worldlet and they always change their locations. Except for the one appearing on Mount Jianfeng, the other exits always show up randomly." Zhang Han followed them to the lake and saw 7 people flying over from a distance. Wang Xia glanced at them several times and said, "They're men of the Red Peak sect, leave them alone and let's go ahead." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He took the lead to speed up. As he came to the east side of the lake and entered the water, a burst of energy started fluctuating at a depth of 10 meters. The other people ducked into the lake at the same time and found that the image before them had changed all of a sudden. Only the village appeared on the lake. In the meantime, appropriative ships were coming and going, providing the island with various materials. "Let's go to Sanmen City first. It's 11:50 now. If we book the latest flight, we'll arrive in Hong Kong before nightfall." Wang Xia looked at his watch. Watches were commonly used in the worldlet, for it was not a closed world but depended on the mainland. Some science and technology products that were also sold outside the worldlet were available inside. though in small quantities. The worldlet was dotted with villages and towns as well, but most of the forces appearing here were from sects. Generally speaking, such sects cultivated many small sects outside the worldlet, which would make it more convenient for them to come out. The Heavenly Knights sect, however, did not do so. It was only on friendly terms with two sects. As such, it often took them a long time to go out. That was to say, they needed to queue to buy tickets. I'll call to make arrangements. Though they did not have serviceable connections, Zhang Han did. He maintained a sound relationship with the Chen clan, the Gai clan in the northeast, the Rong clan in Linhai, the National Security Agency, which all cherished great power. Xiaofeng, please help me book flights from Xuanhuan City. We plan to return to Hong Kong. Huh? Wang Xia glanced at Zhang Han in surprise. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be leading a fulfilling life in the secular world. So, they went straight to Xuanhuan Airport. When they reached their destination, a private plane was waiting for them. I'll go over and take a look, just take your time. Wang Xia waved to the others, who left after greeting the two of them. Warmly welcomed by the five people, Wang Xia and Zhang Han got on the plane. The plane took off slowly and headed for Hong Kong. Wang Xia chatted with Zhang Han in the beginning, but he found that Zhang Han was a man of few words. He, therefore, fell silent and closed his eyes to rest. As for Zhang Han, he looked out of the window. The sky was very bright, with only a few thin clouds floating by. The mountains, the land and the world held no attraction for Zhang Han. Scenes, from childhood to primary school, to junior high school, until now, flashed across Zhang Han's mind. Although they had gone through ups and downs, they would eventually reunite. Whatever it is, I am back. A feeling of excitement stirred within Zhang Han and he had a hard time staying calm. He even felt that time passed a little slowly. Time passed by. Finally, at nearly 4 o'clock, the plane arrived at New Moon Bay and slowly landed at the company's airport. He was close to them. Zhang Han saw a large group of people standing at the edge of the airport. He was getting closer to them. In front of the crowd stood two people and Zhang Han felt a tremor in his mind when he saw them. Eventually, the plane cruised to a stop and the door opened. After the ramp was lowered, Zhang Han walked down slowly. Papa. Meng Meng let out an extremely happy cry. She stretched out her small arms and wriggled in Xian's arms, intending to throw herself into Zhang Han's arms, but Xian held her tightly. After Xian whispered a few words in the little girl's ear, she stopped and looked around curiously with her big eyes. Zhang Han glanced at Meng Meng with a smile and then fixed his eyes on the two figures in front of them. For a moment, Zhang Han's heart skipped a beat. Dad, Mom. He called them in a low voice. These two words seemed to be extraordinarily heavy at this point. My son. Zhang Guangyu laughed, strode over and reached out his strong arms. As they approached, Zhang Guangyu took the lead in hugging Zhang Han. Good boy, you've suffered a lot these years, I won't leave you again. Zhang Guangyu patted Zhang Han on the back and said in a trembling voice, I didn't have a rough time. Zhang Han's eyes turned a little red. Han, let me hug you. Rong Jiali could not wait but pushed Zhang Guangyu away, holding Zhang Han, who was taller than her. You're a real man now. I've missed you so much these years. As was known to all, women were made of water, so Rong Jiali did not hide her tears. Zhang Li, Zif, Rong Jiaxin, Xian, Zhao Feng, Instructor Liu and some others behind shared the same feelings with them and their eyes turned red as well. Wang Xiao, who was standing behind them, smiled with emotion. Only their son could make young master and his wife so happy. All right, Mom, we're all back. It's great that we're reunited. He was so emotional at the very beginning, but at this time, Zhang Han patted Rong Jiali on the back with a smile and said, I thought that I would introduce my wife and daughter to you when you came back, but I didn't expect you would come over on your own. How do we keep calm? You should be waiting for us here. Rong Jiali's hand reached under the bamboo hat to wipe away her tears. I'm worried about you. Zhang Han walked over with Xian. Come on, Dad and Mom, let me introduce them to you. This beautiful lady is Xian, my gentle and virtuous wife. This is Meng Meng, the most lovely and beautiful little princess. While speaking, Zhang Han held Meng Meng in his arms and kissed her little pink cheek gently. My papa is also the most handsome man. Mew, 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 papa, I miss you so much. Meng Meng was so delighted that she danced in Zhang Han's arms. Ha ha. Zhang Han burst into laughter as if he was embracing the whole world. Congratulations on your reunion, young master and young master's wife. Wang Xiao approached Zhang Guangyu and greeted him with a smile. Thanks. Zhang Guangyu nodded in response. He could not stop himself from smiling because he was overjoyed. Let's go back first and catch up. Rong Jiaxin said with a smile. Let's get in the car. Zhang Han walked to the stretch Rolls-Royce nearby with Meng Meng in his arms. In addition to Zhao Feng who was driving, Rong Jiali, Zhang Guangyu, Zhang Li, Zhang Han, Xian and Meng Meng were in the car. Meng Meng stayed in Zhang Han's arms with a satisfied expression all the time, refusing to leave him. Mom, why are you wearing that hat? Zhang Han asked after the motorcade set off. Your mother is a little unwell and needs to wear it for some time. Zhang Guangyu replied helplessly. What? Zhang Han frowned slightly, reached out his left hand and pressed Rong Jiali's right hand. 3 seconds later, Zhang Han's eyes darkened. He looked at his father and said, the wind snow school? Actually, many things were left unsaid. Zhang Guangyu nodded and said, you're right. Got it. Zhang Han replied and did not say anything else. However, Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali could clearly see the coldness flashing across Zhang Han's eyes. Chapter 723, Being Killed After Showing Up. The Wind Snow School was very powerful and famous and they recruited disciples every year. It was these newcomers who injected fresh blood into the organization. The battle between them and the Heavenly Knights sect did not affect their recruitment process and instead attracted far more disciples than the other sects. Thanks to the war, they had more opportunities to gain further resources, which increased their strength. Bit by bit, martial artists should fight for all useful resources. This was an everlasting principle. Meng Meng, however, neither knew about such complex things, nor understood what they were talking about. She nestled in Zhang Han's arms and raised her head after a while. Papa, you said you would be back soon, but you broke your promise. Mama and I waited for so long that we cried. What? Zhang Han turned Meng Meng around, stared at her and said, why were you crying? It's all my fault. Next time, I'll come back early. Okay? That's good. Meng Meng replied obediently, but she found that something was wrong after pondering over it for a while. The little girl was lost in thought as her big shiny eyes widened. It was not until 3 seconds later that an idea came across her mind, and she said, no, Papa, next time we'll go out together. Oh, that's right, let's go together next time. Zhang Han answered with a smile. Great. Ha ha. Zhang Han laughed, then looked at Meng Meng and said, how do you feel about your grandparents? Why did he suddenly change the subject? Meng Meng was slightly stunned. After thinking for 2 seconds, she nodded and said, good. Ha ha. Xian could not help laughing. Why did he feel that the little princess was a bit reluctant? Don't your grandparents treat you well? Xian asked. Well, they are very nice. Meng Meng stared at Zhang Han grudgingly and said as she pouted. They wanted to kiss me, but I refused. Papa told me that others cannot kiss me and I cannot kiss others as well. Ha ha. Zhang Guangyu suddenly looked at Zhang Han angrily. Your mom and I have become outsiders now, have we? What? Zhang Han was somewhat stunned. Was he shooting himself in his foot? Ahem. Zhang Han gently pinched Meng Meng's tender face and said, your grandpa and grandma are not outsiders. Look, they're angry. Just let Grandpa hold you for a while. Meng Meng agreed obediently and threw herself into Zhang Guangyu's arms. Just as he smiled, the little girl stretched out her small arms to Zhang Han. Time's up, Papa, pick me up. Zhang Han felt totally helpless. If you want me to hold you, you should kiss your grandparents first. Zhang Guangyu approached Meng Meng while speaking. Meng Meng blinked her eyes and did not kiss them until she glanced at them a few times. Go ahead. Zhang Guangyu smiled with great satisfaction and put Meng Meng into Zhang Han's arms. What an obedient girl. Of course, her mother has brought her up well. Zhang Han replied with a smile and looked at Xian gently. We've heard about what happened to you. Yan is a good girl, so you must treat her well. If she's wronged, I won't let you off. Wrong, Jiali said. Okay. Zhang Han nodded. Aren't he wrong? Don't worry, he is very kind to me. Xian gave a contented smile. That's great. If he bullies you in the future, you should inform me. I think it's time for you to call me Mom. Son, we've reached a conclusion that you'd better get married as soon as possible. We originally wanted to contact Yan's parents, but finally, we planned to visit them together after you come back. By then, we can check the date and prepare for the wedding. Okay. If you have nothing to do, why don't we do it tomorrow? Fine. Since it took only a dozen minutes for them to reach Mount New Moon, they were still chatting when they arrived at the destination. After they parked the car in the parking lot beside the restaurant and got out of the car, Zhang Han looked toward the dense forest. Zhang Guangyu also looked over coldly and said calmly, it's time to do some exercise. We won't follow you, Guangyu, come back soon. Wrong, Jiali said. Okay. Zhang Guangyu nodded. They were not in a hurry but went up the mountain in succession after getting out of the car, preparing to sit in the hall on the first floor of the castle for a while. The buildings here look really artistic and fantastic. Did young lord decorate the castle? Keeping pace with the crowd, Wang Xiao asked Zhao Feng casually. Yes. They were all designed by my master. Your master? Yes, I was so fortunate to become his disciple last year. Oh. Wang Xiao nodded casually and did not pay much attention to what he said. Seeing his expression, Zhao Feng added coldly, if it weren't for my master, I would still be an ordinary person and would not know the true colors of the world. What? Wang Xiao's eyes suddenly widened. A year? He was actually promoted to a Wudao Grandmaster even though he had not been a martial artist a year ago. Are you kidding me? Alas, I've been his disciple for about 10 months. As for the members of our security group, they almost reached the Grandmaster's realm after more than 10 months of hard work. However, it's a shame that we are progressing somewhat slowly. Wang Xiao's gaze changed. He wanted to beat him even as he stared at Zhao Feng. He could not help scolding him inwardly. Damn it, he was showing off. However, he was indeed incredible since he managed to reach such a high stage within a year. It's a pity that such speeded-up educational programs will not create a solid foundation for them. Although Wang Xiao was confused, he did not ask him in detail. After walking to the side of the castle with the crowd, he followed Zhang Guangyu to the Thunder Yang tree. Young master, let's go together. So, they went to the back hill, flying to the sea behind the dense forest at a high speed. Meanwhile, the soul senses of Zhang Han, Rong Jiali and Dong Chen, namely the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Knights sect, were also probing the conditions on Mount New Moon. He was aware that the strength of the people from the Wind Snow School was negligible, so he did not bother to take any action for the moment. But those people did not know what his thoughts were. The two groups were floating 100 meters apart above the coastal area. One party consisted of 5 men, including Chen Chengqing, Wang Zanping, 2 other elders of the Wang family and Gai Xingkong. The 11 people against them were all at the Divine Realm stage, led by a thin-faced man with long hair. He was Yao Feng, the man who coveted Mount New Moon. Emperor King, People like you only dare to bestow themselves such grand names when the worldlet is in seclusion. It's ridiculous that the current martial arts world actually accepts this title. Yao Feng gave Emperor King a flippant look as he kept playing with the two iron balls in his right hand, completely ignoring him. You will realize our real strength once we fight against each other. Why are you so stupid and arrogant? Shan Wangzhang sneered. I think you're so arrogant. Yao Feng grinned. My intention was to kill all of you unless you throw in the towel, but now, it seems unnecessary. While speaking, he looked at the people around him. Now that they do not know what the Wind Snow School is, we should show them our real strength. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The other 10 Divine Realm Masters moved in an instant and rushed toward Zhang Han. They did not hold back at all, launching overwhelming attacks one after another. Soul Gathering Flag, come out. Wang Zanping also wanted to have a go, releasing the energy in the Soul Gathering Flag. However, before the energy finished converging, the 100-meter-high Soul Gathering Flag shrunk after being continuously attacked and flew back to Wang Zanping's hand. He could not stay calm any longer. He recalled the inspiring picture when Han used the Soul Gathering Flag. Why can't I perform it with the same high proficiency? Am I using a fake one? He was angry, but he knew that he was no match for the enemies in this urgent situation. He then retreated dozens of meters, planning to launch an attack with the Soul Gathering Flag again. Buzz! As Gai Xing Kong summoned his Dragon Tiger Spear, golden spear shadows rushed out in succession. But these attacks were slowly consumed because there were too many opponents. Shan Wangzhang was the strongest in this group. All-out drought demonic dragon. Boom. Using both his skills and secret methods, he displayed 2 coordinated sword moves, which even made Yao Feng narrow his eyes. You're indeed powerful, but I'll definitely defeat you. He did not plan to continue watching this display, but instead secretly approached Shan Wangzhang at a high speed. Simultaneously, the 2 iron balls in his right hand also began to rotate around him. Streams of wild energy whistled by and gradually formed a huge tornado, while the seawater beneath him kept surging and huge waves were created by this towering tornado. It seemed as if a dragon was sucking up the water, but the energy contained within startled Shan Wangzhang. Retreat. The 5 of them were apparently no match for him. They kept retreating and were violently beaten by the enemies. It seemed that they were about to succeed. What an easy task. Yao Feng and all the other 10 people looked relaxed. Kill them. Yao Feng gave the order. Just as he was thinking about ending the battle, at the next moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Who are you going to kill? What? Yao Feng looked over and was stunned as he caught sight of the figure coming quickly from the side. Then his face changed greatly. Oh no. Zhang Wangyu. Damn it, run now. He was so scared that his body trembled. In the twinkle of an eye, he turned around and ran away. All the faces of the other 10 men turned pale as they used their most powerful secret fleeing techniques, heading directly for the depths of the sea as fast as they could. Maybe many people were not acquainted with Zhang Wangyu, young master of the Heavenly Knights sect before. However, after King Zenzi found him, everyone in Wind Snow School knew what Zhang Wangyu looked like. After all, as long as they caught him, they would earn high rewards. But could they get the bonus? Impossible. They had heard from the subsect of the Cultivation World that Zhang Wangyu, young master of the Heavenly Knights sect, had killed 17 Earthrealm martial artists and a large number of Divine Realm Masters from Wind Snow School. They were so frightened when they saw Zhang Wangyu at this moment. Do you want to escape? Glang. When they heard the buzzing sound of metal rubbing against each other, their scalps tingled. Yao Feng turned his head and saw Zhang Wangyu pulling out her shining sword, brandishing it toward them. Oh no. He had not finished performing his blood shield technique. He did not want to die. He fixed his eyes on the glow of the horizontal saber. He felt that he might be able to succeed in using the secret method to escape before the sword light approached. Puff. However, the sword radiance suddenly dissipated, followed by a faint sound coming from his body. How could that be? Yao Feng, like a deflated balloon, was no longer conscious. He saw from the corner of his eye that the other 10 people had also fallen into the sea. Isn't this Mount New Moon? Isn't it Zhang Han Yang's territory? How is it that Zhang Guangyu is here? Overwhelmed by doubts, Yao Feng, King Zhen's disciple, who wanted to take away the divine objects optionally, was killed in less than 2 minutes after he showed up. Chapter 724, Talking at Night. Gulp. What happened stunned everyone in the area. How did he manage to kill 11 Divine Realm experts with a single move? Moreover, one of them was at the God Realm peak stage. The corners of Chen Chenking's eyes twitched as he stared at Zhang Guangyu in confusion. Only those with unfathomable strength could do that so easily. Was he at the Earth Realm stage? Perhaps he had reached at least the Earth Realm middle stage. How awesome Uncle Zhang is! Wang Zanping was totally dumbfounded. Oh my god, what a strong man. Besides, he was just a junior. Generally speaking, elders cherished great strength. But why was each of Zhang Han's family so formidable? Among the people present, the most bemused one was North Tiger Gaik Sing Kong. He looked at Zhang Guangyu dazedly and did not know what to say. A few seconds later, his face was screwed up in an expression of pain. The gap between them was getting wider and wider. He actually had broken through to the Earth Realm stage secretly. Young master, please leave a few opponents for me. Wang Xiao sneered and said, I'm capable of dealing with these weaklings. You do not need to take any action. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Zanping and the others fixed their eyes on Wang Xiao. Is he an expert at the Earth Realm stage as well? How old is he? Even Chen Chenking had a solemn expression on his face. Judging from his tone, he was sure that Wang Xiao, seemingly a few years older than him, was at the Earth Realm stage. Men of talent do come out in succession in the world lit. I need to make full use of the time to cultivate. Chen Chenking did not want to fall behind the others. Although he was still formidable in the eyes of others, he was aware that Brother Han would definitely be stronger than him once he made a breakthrough. Furthermore, those talents from the world lit exerted great pressure on him. I'm not weaker than the others. With determination in his eyes, Chen Chenking was inspired by the arrival of the world lit. Hearing Wang Xiao's question, Zhang Guangyu put his saber back into the sheath and replied coldly, I don't want to waste time. After that, he turned around and took the lead in flying back to Mount New Moon. I was in an old tree in the dense forest. It rolled its eyes, realizing that the man in front of it was really awesome. Whoa, 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 slap, slap. I not only took the lead in applauding Zhang Guangyu, but also gave him a thumbs up. After all, it was very sensible. COO. Tiny Tot was as cooperative as always, beating its wings energetically. Little Hi's claws could not make a sound, so it just let out a cry. Seeing what they did, Zhang Guangyu shook his head with a smile. 3 spirit beasts. Wang Xiao felt somewhat amazed. He seized them up and said, this chimpanzee is at their Grand Master peak and not far from the Divine Realm stage. As for the big dog, it's at the last stage of Grand Master. However, I can't make out what the small penguin is. It will be hard for you to gain an insight into it. Zhang Guangyu shook his head slightly and said casually, even Uncle Dong failed to figure out what it is. Swish. Wang Xiao's face changed all of a sudden. Since even Grand Elder could not perceive what it was, it probably is a mysterious spirit beast. Of course, how could my son be mediocre? Zhang Guangyu laughed and said, in addition to 2 high-end divine objects, there are various natural precious materials, such as holy objects on Mount New Moon. Uncle Dong was also in a state of shock for some time when he came up the mountain. All right. Wang Xiao said in a weak tone. It seemed that what he said to young Lord completely made no sense, for there were a lot of treasures here. Although the number of treasures stored in the Heavenly Knights sect was far beyond that reserved on Mount New Moon, the treasures here belonged solely to Zhang Han, which indeed startled him. Where did you find my son? Zhang Guangyu asked. After admiring the Thunder Yang tree, they walked to the castle. As for Gai Xingkong and his companions, they kept pace with them, their hearts trembling. They were somewhat stunned, heading for the castle with the intention to listen to them first. It's young lord himself who went up the mountain, and Jiang Bing entertained him this morning. After I returned to the sect, we left at about 11 o'clock. Wang Xiao responded. Oh, Han entered the world lit after its gate opened yesterday. I don't know where he went for more than a day. Zhang Wangyu said doubtfully. He planned to remind him not to wander around in the world lit when they had their chat at night. Every sect had a certain activity area and nobody would know what was going to happen outside the sect. Moreover, on the huge spirit beast mountains in the Kungzi world lived plenty of fierce beasts. Once people entered that space, they were likely to encounter many types of danger. If they learned that Zhang Han had gone to the Wind Snow School and nosed out lots of information, they would be dumbfounded. After walking into the castle, they sat on the sofa and chatted with each other. Meng sat beside Zhang Han, merrily eating big cherries and strawberries. This little girl, Zhang Wangyu found her both funny and annoying. He felt that Meng almost totally ignored all the others if Zhang Han was not around. But when he came back, she was in high spirits, even when she was eating fruit. After they walked into the hall, many people looked over at the same time. Zhang Han, in particular, grinned, as his eyes filled with amazement. He did not expect that his father was an Earthrealm master. Judging by the chi he had released, he had just been promoted to the peak stage. How brilliant he was! Zhang Han gave his father a thumbs up. Besides, Zhang Han did not expect that his mother was a martial artist at the Divine Realm stage as well. Seeing Zhang Han's action, Meng stopped eating and looked around. She said comfortably, Grandpa, sit here, these fruits are so delicious. The little girl patted Zhang Han on the left leg and motioned him to sit on Zhang Han's left. Well, Zhang Wangyu smiled and went over to sit down. He pinched Meng's tender cheek and said, Little girl, you treat me better only when your father is back. Meng snorted softly. May I know who he is? Sitting next to Zhang Guangyu, Gai Xingkong glanced at Wang Xiao, who was sitting on the opposite side with Zhao Feng. He's a disciple of my sect. You can call him Xiao. Is he an Earthrealm master? You're right. Gai Xingkong's mouth quivered. Wang Zanping and the others were also staring at each other in shock. Comparisons were odious. After chatting for a while, they ate hot pot in a restaurant in the evening. After dinner, they returned to the castle and played with Meng for a while before going to bed at about 9:30. Tell me a story, Papa. Dressed in pajamas with a panda motif, Meng was very energetic and lay on the bed with Xian. As for Zhang Han, he was lying in the middle with Xian and Meng holding him. They listened to his story and Meng fell asleep after a while. Xian was not asleep yet, but she yawned and leaned her head on Zhang Han's neck. After 2 minutes, she moved her slender legs away from Zhang Han and whispered, Go and talk to your parents, they miss you so much. Will you come with me? Zhang Han asked. No, I want to read this book for a while and will sleep after you come back. Go ahead. Okay. Zhang Han kissed Xian, then carefully sat up and took Meng back to the small bed. The instant he covered her with the quilt, the girl kicked it off. Thereafter, Zhang Han tucked her in again with a smile. After seeing Xian turning on the bedside lamp that emitted a soft glow and picking up a book, Zhang Han walked out and jumped from the balcony to the square inches front of the castle. At this time, Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali were sitting in the pavilion beside the Thunder Yang tree. Come on, son. Zhang Guangyu patted the place next to him with a smile. Did Lilai go back? Zhang Han asked casually after sitting down. She felt sleepy after walking for over 10 minutes because we talked till it was very late last night and it's your turn today. Zhang Wangyu said and patted Zhang Han on the shoulder with a smile. Good boy, you really surprised me. I did not expect that you have become such a formidable martial artist in recent years. Powerful as I am, I cannot hold a candle to you and Mum. You're at the Earth Realm stage and at the Divine Realm stage respectively. Zhang Han said with a smile. Let's change the topic. Yan and Meng did shock me. These 2 days, I find out that they're indeed attentive to you. You have experienced a lot and finally got together, so you must cherish her. Rong Jiali took off her bamboo hat and said while looking at Zhang Han, however, I have to remind you in advance that martial artists, like gods on the land, bear extraordinary abilities and are omnipotent, which has made many martial artists change their minds. In the world polygamy and multi-wives are very common, but, before she finished speaking, Zhang Han, finding her both funny and annoying, said, That's impossible. Don't worry, Dad and Mum, I'm not a playboy. After saying that, the space suddenly became silent. Zhang Wenyi's and Rong Jiali's expressions led to an awkward moment. Ahem, although I used to be a bit unfaithful, I have a daughter now. I cherish her, so there's no need for you to worry. Zhang Han added helplessly. Xian is a good girl, but I heard that she neither can cultivate nor absorb the medicinal pellets. You, therefore, should cherish the time you spend together. Zhang Wenyu sighed. An ordinary person can only live for at most 100 years or so. Time passes quickly. Ha ha. Zhang Han shook his head in amusement. Mom, Dad, you do underestimate Xian. What, is she a special person? Zhang Wenyu was stunned. Of course. Zhang Han said in a positive tone. She's much scarier than you and I thought. What do you mean? Rong Jiali asked doubtfully. I checked her body. Except for the location of her danshan, she is the same as ordinary people. She's different. Zhang Han shook his head slightly. Have you seen that penguin? If you probe it with your soul sense, you won't find anything, because it's very different. Is it a spirit beast? Zhang Guanyu asked. Rong Jiali and Zhang Guanyu were also staring at Tiny Tot at this point. Then, Zhang Han's emotional voice sounded. Its power surpasses a spirit beast's. Its name is Ancient Cursed Rock. The boat of curse is just the tip of the iceberg it presented when it was born. When it grows up, it can destroy the world. Actually, it can travel through the universe, break the space and go to the world of immortals. Most importantly, it. At this moment, Zhang Han slowed down and said word for word. It is Xian's ancient demonic beast. Chapter 725, Visiting New Relatives. Boom. Zhang Han's words were like magic spells for Zhang Guanyu and Rong Jiali. The couple stared at their son in astonishment. A series of thoughts flashed through their minds. Ancient cursed rock. Boat of curse, but just the tip of the iceberg. Destroy the heaven and earth, roam the universe, tear apart space and go to the immortal world. It is Xian's ancient demonic beast. The news was so shocking that even the young master of Heavenly Knights sect was shocked. Ancient cursed rock? What's that? Well, Zhang Wenyu's eyes once again focused on Tiny Tot. He said in shock, I've heard about the gigantic fish. It was several kilometers in length and used to live in Beiming. The fish can turn into a bird known as a rock, whose back is also thousands of kilometers long. It is said that Beiming is a place in the depths of the dark world and the road that connects the dark world and the mortal world is in the center of Bermuda Triangle, that is, the legendary Alcatraz Island. It is said that someone had seen a rock several decades ago, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. Rock? Zhang Han smiled. In fact, he said, the fish is the real rock and the bird is just a form of its transformation, while the giant bird mistaken by you as a rock is actually another kind of ancient demonic beast. Rock dominates the ocean, while the giant bird likes flying. Rock has many kinds of transformation forms, like bird and the boat of curse, which are all the other appearances of Tiny Tot. There are countless kinds of rocks and that giant bird, such as cursed rock, thunder rock, water rock, profound rock, eight-wing flame bird, golden bird, monster sunbird, etc. But neither of them can be easily seen. Ancient demonic beasts are rare and each of them is born strong and talented in cultivation, like Tiny Tot. You can't imagine how powerful it will be when it grows up. Zhang Han pointed at Tiny Tot while speaking. Wait. Zhang Guangyu was shocked and turned to look at Zhang Han. How do you know so much? I have not heard any of these stories before. Yes, my son. Rong Jiali was also confused. And I've heard that your debut has only been less than a year. Zhang Guangyu asked. Did you get any martial arts heritage from ancient predecessors? Zhang Han fell silent. Then he smiled and said, well, I'll tell you about it. I really had a chance to gain all the knowledge. Actually, I've been dreaming for 500 years in the depths of Kunlun. To put it another way, there used to be a cultivator named Han Yang Immortal and I inherited his memory and some abilities. Maybe there are martial arts worldlet and Kunlun Immortal World here, but they are all too small. I don't know what's going on in Kunlun Immortal World and perhaps there is a road to the Cultivation World. The Cultivation World is wide with thousands of small worlds and families in the vast starry sky. The cultivation level there is divided into Qi refining stage, building base, innateness, elixir, Yuan Ying, God transformation, shadow refining, integration, great perfection and past tribulation. In the cultivation world, everything is beyond your imagination. There are all kinds of dangerous secret realms, countless mysterious and profound arrays and all kinds of alchemy skills. As for Han Yang Immortal, his experiences are all in my mind from the Qi refining stage to the 9th level of past tribulation stage. But that's not enough. The world of immortals, where every cultivator yearns for, is above the cultivation world. That's why our journey is just beginning. Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali were stunned. Can I believe you? Zhang Guangyu asked. I'm sure what I say is true. Zhang Han replied with a smile. I'm Han Yang Immortal. But he didn't tell the truth, because his mother would be very worried about him. Besides, the situation was too inconceivable and Zhang Han decided to tell them the story later when they were ready for it. Even so, it took his parents 10 minutes to digest the information and calm down. They looked at each other and saw the same astonishment reflected in their faces. Then they turned their eyes back to Zhang Han. Believe me. Zhang Han smiled and said, to put it simply, I'm clear about my mother's physical condition. Since her spirit and soul were poisoned, she can't advance in her cultivation and her skin cannot be exposed to light, spiritual qi and oxygen. That's why she is always wearing this 5th level bamboo hat. Although she can take it off for a short time every day, she will feel her skin starting to itch. And even with this bamboo hat, it will take more than 5 years for her to recover. Am I right? Zhang Guangyu was suddenly silent. 2 seconds later, he nodded. Yes. When I break into the innateness stage, I will find the spirit grass to detoxify my mother. Okay. Rong Jiali was relieved and said with a complicated look, I did not expect that you would get such a high-end opportunity. I don't know what to say. But no matter how powerful you are and how strong you will be in the future, I hope you are safe. I see. Zhang Han smiled and nodded. I know it will make you feel strange and worried, but I said it to make you feel assured. I'm not interested in fighting. I'm a father now and all I want is to accompany Meng as she grows up. Moreover, our opponent is just a small sect. Alas. Zhang Guangyu sighed. I feel as if I'm dreaming. Is it true? He looked at Rong Jiali, which amused her. Now that my son says it is true, it is true. Forget it. I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm so confused. Zhang Guangyu shook his head and said, I believe you, but it's too complicated. My son, don't tell anyone about it and just keep this secret to yourself. By the way, I guess you can break into the divine realm without your strength now, am I right? Someone like me is aware too about the Qi refining, building base, innateness and elixir stage you have mentioned, but the rule is not suitable for the martial arts world. I can feel that your Q is surging and you can make a breakthrough at any time. Yes, but I have to wait a little longer. Wait for what? Are you short of resources? What do you need? I can ask Xia to go back to the sect to get them. There are a lot of treasures in Heavenly Knight's sect. As long as you don't empty the whole treasure house, you can do whatever you want in it. Zhang Wangyu said. Ha ha, not yet. Zhang Han laughed and said, I can use Thunder Yang wood to break through. When I need other spiritual treasures, maybe I'll turn to you. It's not the right time yet. You must know the land of Thunder Yang, right? Zhang Guangyu suddenly smiled and said, you have two kinds now. When you gather the other three types together, you can turn the mountain into a treasury land that a lot of martial artists will yearn for. You think I only have two kinds? Zhang Han smiled meaningfully. While his parents looked at him in surprise, Zhang Han waved his right hand. Clatter. Some crystal blue grass appeared out of thin air. In the moonlight, they flew into Mount New Moon like a group of fireflies, slowly approached the Thunder Yang tree and planted themselves under it. Buzz, buzz. A massive amount of spiritual chi and the energy of the Thunder Yang treasures were constantly whirling about, made up of Thunder Yang grass, Thunder Yang flower and Thunder Yang tree. The continuous circulation made the chi of Thunder Yang tree seem more mysterious and profound. At the same time, the crystal mine in the mountain changed and almost turned into tangible substances. If Zhang Han wanted, they could be turned into low-grade crystals in the next year, but Zhang Han was more ambitious than that. Crack, crack. The crackling sounds spread across the mountain and the number of crystal stones decreased sharply. However, up to now, there were only about 10,000 mature crystals. However, they were still not real crystals. Though they looked like crystals, they did not have the same aura, which meant that the spiritual chi in them did not meet Zhang Han's requirements. As for the objectives, Zhang Han had a small goal that he wanted to promote the crystal stones to at least the middle level, while top-level stones were his objectives. However, there were still some difficulties in getting the high-level crystal stones. Thunder Yang grass, you have all three kinds? Zhang Guangyu was shocked again. Dad, I said we're just at the beginning. There's still a long way to go and we have enough time. Zhang Han replied with a smile. During the past 500 years of cultivation, Zhang Han seldom smiled. But when he came back, he smiled more frequently. The emptiness he felt and some regrets gradually faded away. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. It was an aged man. Zhang Han glanced at the stranger and knew he must be Dong Chen, the Grand Elder of Heavenly Knight's sect. Uncle Dong, I planned to take Han to visit you later. I did not expect you to come here. Zhang Wangyu said with a smile. Son, this is Dong Chen, the Grand Elder of Heavenly Knight's sect. He has a good relationship with your grandfather. You are good. Dong Chen said. Before Zhang Han could say anything, Dong Chen nodded and said, your energy chi and spirit are excellent. Both your spiritual force and soul sense can help you to break through easily and perfectly to the divine realm, without weakening the reputation of the Zhang family. For the 3 generations in our times, your talent is as perfect as your grandpa and even better than your father's. Oh, by the way, we are not related by blood, but you can also call me Uncle Dong or Elder Dong. Nice to meet you, Elder Dong. Zhang Han greeted him. He did not expect Elder Dong to be so talkative. It's good to have such a treasure-filled land. You are excellent, Guangyu. You have a good son, but talent doesn't mean everything. The immortals will reward you for your hard work and you should never give up. Try your best to cultivate and I'll be here in the next few days. When you need help in cultivation, you can come to me. When Dong Chen finished speaking, the white-bearded man dressed in a blue robe turned into a beam of light and went back to the villa he lived in. He left as quickly as he came. Looking at each other, both Zhang Wangyu and Rong Jiali burst out laughing. If Uncle Dong had heard what our son said before, he wouldn't have said that. Rong Jiali said with a smile. Ha ha, yes. Zhang Guangyu laughed and patted Zhang Han on the shoulder. Son, you're so amazing. Your mother and I need some time to digest all the news we had today. It's time to go back and have a rest. We'll go to Singapore to visit Xian's parents tomorrow. Okay. The night chat ended happily. Zhang Han still had a lot of things to say, but he was not in a hurry because Hai parents would not be leaving this time. Zhang Guanyu and Rong Jiali had put a lot of thought about going to Singapore. At 8 o'clock the next morning, wearing an expensive suit, a white shirt, an Armani belt and a Patek Philippe watch, Zhang Guanyu looked like a successful businessman. Of course, that was what he used to be previously. Rong Jiali was wearing a formal long blue dress. Even Zhang Han was dressed in a suit and Xian and Meng were also dressed formally. A large group of people were traveling with them, including Gai Xingkong, Wang Xiao, Chen Chenking, Zif, Zhang Li and Wang Ya. They boarded the private plane. I'm going to play. Meng cheered happily as she sat between Zhang Han and Xian. Yes, let's go. Zhang Han touched her little head with a smile, then he looked joyfully at Xian. We are going to have a wedding. Pursing her red lips, Xian leaned on Zhang Han's shoulder like a little bird. Zhang Guanyu was amused by them and replied, let's go and visit our new relatives. Chapter 726, An Auspicious Day. Auntie, should I tell them now, or they will blame me for leaving them no time for preparation? Xian said, with one hand holding Meng's little hand, and the other holding Rong Jiali's arm. Okay, call them. Rong Jiali replied with a smile. In fact, Xian had planned to call Ziqi and Xuanhuan before, but Rong Jiali suggested not to call them because Xian said they would come by plane the second day as soon as they learned the news. They were very concerned about their daughter's marriage, and their son-in-law was very excellent in their eyes. They were eager to see their daughter in happiness and their lovely granddaughter. They almost discussed the wedding with Rong Jiax in the last time, but Zhang Han didn't agree. Considering that they were going to have a daughter-in-law, Rong Jiali felt a little apologetic to ask her family to come and talk about it. Although they might not mind, she thought that she couldn't make Xian feel wronged. She had to do everything well. So they decided to go to Singapore today. After getting on the plane, Xian intended to inform her family in advance, so that they had time to dress up. The phone was soon connected. Mom, do you miss me? We are going back. Of course, when will you come back? I miss my granddaughter. Although her tone was happy, Xian could tell that she was tired. She sounds tired. What happened? We'll go back today. Now we're on the plane, Xian answered, trying to keep calm. Are you coming back today? Xuanhuan was surprised. What's wrong, Mum? It's not convenient today, but I'm fine. You can come back, I'll prepare it. What's up? It's not a big deal. Your father will solve it soon. With a frown, Xian didn't ask any more questions. She decided to talk about it later, so she replied, Zhang Han's parents came back, and we will go to visit you together. What? Are they coming? Xuanhuan was really shocked this time. When will you come? Oh, no, when will you arrive? I'll get ready now. We will arrive at the airport around 11 o'clock. Well, we'll go to the airport to pick you up in advance. See you later. After saying that, Xuanhuan hung up the phone in a hurry. It seemed that she had gone to make preparation. Your mother? Rong Jiali asked in confusion. I don't think it's a big deal, we'll know when we get there. Xian shook her head. She thought that there might be some commercial trouble. Rong Jiali did not ask any more questions. After all seated, the plane took off for Singapore. On the plane, Meng sat on Zhang Han's left side, and Xian was on his right side. The little girl was used to the scenery outside, but she was still very happy staying with Papa. Papa, I'll sing you a song. Well, what do you want to sing? Well, I forgot. The little princess looked at Xian for help. Xian chuckled, sing with Mama. Xian took the lead in singing an English song. Meng began to hum along with her and gradually remembered the lyrics. When Meng's voice turned louder, and Xian lowered her voice, for a moment, the whole cabin was filled with sounds of nature. Even Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali were intoxicated by the song and the pleasant journey. Until 11:30 a.m. The plane landed slowly at Singapore International Airport. In the side pickup area, there was a series of motorcades. Ziqiang, Zixiniu, and a large group of people, including Zihu, Zilong, and Ziqingshan, were dressed very formally. It seemed as if they were going to attend a reception. The eyes of pedestrians on both sides also gathered here, and there were many discussions in the crowd. The whole Zi family is here, and the people they are going to pick up must be powerful. Yes, their Zi family has become a top family now. Ziqiang, the owner of the family, is the president of the Chamber of Commerce and has great influence. Recently, he has settled several important cooperation projects, and his assets will be improved a lot. You don't know it. I heard that the Liu family is now blaming the Zi family. Patriarch Liu was the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, but with the growth of Ziqiang's business, his business opportunity was weakened. He had endured it in the past. But now the elder of the Liu clan returned, who gets along well with almost the whole business circle in Singapore, so the position of Ziqiang is now in danger. It is said that the 3 big projects the Zi clan just won will also be cancelled, and the new partner is the Liu family. Wow, is it true? That is to say, Ziqiang has lost the identity of the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Whether the former president or the leader of the Liu family takes office, there is nothing to do with Ziqiang. Their assets will seriously shrink. The position is not a big deal. The key point is that the Zi family has invested a lot of manpower and resources in the 3 projects. If they are forced to leave, they will lose a lot. The passers-by around were talking about it, and many of them knew the truth. The return of the Liu family elder, has he come back from the world lit? He has broken through to the heaven realm and is now a real tycoon. Even a single word of him can force the Zi family to get out of Singapore. Not to mention Zhang Han, even if he is here with Emperor King, he dares not to challenge a powerful man in Heaven Realm. A few local martial artists present knew the situation was different. In the past, for the sake of Zhang Han, their Zi family could do a lot of things smoothly, but now, Zhang Han's identity was useless. Under their gaze, the crowd on both sides slowly approached each other. Although their words couldn't be heard, it could be told from their expressions that they were very enthusiastic. Dad, Mom, Grandpa, Grandma, Father-in-law, Mother-in-law. Zhang Han's family greeted Ziyan's parents. Hello. Ziqiang was very happy. He nodded repeatedly, and then looked curiously at Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali, who had just taken off her bamboo hat. They are Han's parents. Judging from their appearance and temperament, Ziqiang was sure that they were. Because he had seen others last time. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, this is my father, and this is my mother. Zhang Han nodded and introduced. Hello, nice to meet you. Ziqiang held out his hand in a hurry. Zhang Wangyu also quickly reached out and said with a smile, Hello, my name is Zhang Wangyu, and this is my wife Rong Jiali. Ziqiang, Zixiniu. Ziqiang pointed at himself and his wife and then said with a smile, Welcome. Yan didn't tell me in advance, and we haven't made enough a preparation. You must be tired all the way. Get in the car first, the lunch is ready at home. Zixiniu said and led the way to the car on the side. For the convenience of chatting, they drove 3 business limos today. The family of Zhang Han and their parents sat in the same car. In the beginning, the atmosphere was quiet and a little embarrassing for a few seconds. Ziqiang was not sure about the other party's temper and was thinking about how to say it. After a few seconds of silence, Zhang Wangyu smiled and said, According to our custom, we can call each other relatives. That's right, we have been waiting for this day for a long time. After all, Meng is almost 5 years old. It will be too late if they don't hold a wedding. Ziqiang laughed. It's okay, it's not too late to be happy, Ziyan answered in a low voice. After a pause, Ziqiang said, Well, a grown daughter can't be kept, she's on your side now. Ha ha, that's my daughter-in-law. Zhang Guanyu laughed. Of course, they were not serious words, it was just a joke, and the atmosphere livened up. Meng Meng blinked her big beautiful eyes and drank the juice her grandmother brought her. She was watching the adults as an onlooker. You have a good son. Han is not only handsome but also has good ability. The most important thing is that he has a good temper. When he smiles, I like him very much. He is a good boy. Xuanhuan was very satisfied with Zhang Han and praised him in the presence of him. Xian smiled a lot. Even Meng Meng put down her juice cup and got cheered up. Papa is the best. Xian is beautiful too. Rong Jiali exclaimed as a response. We didn't expect that Han could find us such a beautiful daughter-in-law. She is not only beautiful but also tender and considerate. We are so happy. The family-style mutual flattery began, but what they said was true. Yan's father is very good for running such a big family. Brother Zhang is also very handsome, and still young. After a while, Ziqiang talked about the business when they were about to arrive at the Zi family's place. Well, Han, as well as Yan's parents, I wonder what you think of the wedding. It doesn't matter to us, let's take the children's advice, said Rong Jiali. So they looked at Zhang Han. It will be in Hong Kong. That. Ziqiang looked at Zhang Guanyu. Let's prepare for it these days and choose a day for the wedding. Good, that's what I think. Zhang Guanyu nodded. Let's wait a little bit longer. At this time, Zhang Han shook his head slightly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. All eyes were on him again. Zhang Guanyu frowned slightly. Wait again? How long do you want to wait? Everyone is anxious except you. Well, Zhang Han's mouth twitched slightly. It's not what you think. I think there's a good day. Which day? September 9th symbolizes the long-term love, and now it is just in a month, Zhang Han said with a smile. There was one thing he didn't say. He was going to the Cultivation World the next month. The thunder in the sky of Wind Snow School was suitable for him. Perhaps he saw through Zhang Han's idea, so Zhang Guanyu pondered a little and then nodded. Shall we fix a time? More than a month is not long. We should make enough preparations and hold a grand wedding for the two children. Okay. So the day was set. While drinking the juice, Meng Meng mumbled, I'm finally going to hold the bouquet. The little princess had a deep memory of this matter. She wanted to help them with the bouquet at their wedding. Chapter 727. Someone from the Liu family? When the date was set, the smiles of the parents of the two sides were even wider. A few minutes later, Rong Jiali put on her bamboo hat, which looked like a round hat and confused both Xuanhuan and Ziqiang. They didn't know why she wore it. There is something wrong with my wife's skin, Zhang Guanyu explained briefly. Of course, the two wouldn't mind. After getting off the car, they walked to the dining room, which was full of people. There were not only the elders of the Zi family but also the young people. It was like a grand banquet. With the arrival of Zhang Han and his companions, all their eyes gathered on them, including those of the elder of the Zi family. They all stood up and took a few steps to greet them. Welcome. They greeted each other. Shan Wangzhang even received 2 flowers prepared by 2 young girls. He took a gloating look at Zif, which made her roll her eyes. I'm more charming than Brother Han. As soon as the joy of defeating Zhang Han rose, Shan Wangzhang heard the 2 girls' voices when they went back and talked to their companions. Oh, unfortunately, I didn't give it out. The eldest brother-in-law is surrounded by people and I couldn't squeeze in. I gave the flower to another man at random. So did I. I gave my flower to him when I saw you did so. Shan Wangzhang was very depressed. He looked at the 2 flowers in his hand and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, the group thanked for the warm welcome of the Zi family and then took their seats. Ziqiang waved, and then said aloud after everyone's voice subsided, I'd like to give you a grand introduction. The 2 distinguished guests beside me are Zhang Han's parents and our future relatives. Applause. Other family members gave them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. Zhang Guanyu waved his hand with a smile, looked out of the window, and then said, although they haven't held a wedding yet, Han and Yan are a couple. We feel guilty because of the delay. Yan is a good girl and didn't say anything, but we, as the parents of Han, must do something as a gesture of etiquette. We hope you, our relatives, don't mind. Please accept our late bride price. Oh, don't be so polite. Ziqian paused because he saw that a group of people was walking towards him with various gift boxes. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Other people also looked at them one after another. In the near distance, they could see that there were all kinds of gold, silver, and diamond jewelry in each box. There were 5 large boxes in total, which was in accordance with the style of a fancy tycoon. These gold, silver, and jewelry, in the eyes of discerning people, were worth only 200 or 300 million yuan, while the bank card that the Zi family gave Zhang Han at first had 2 billion yuan in it. This was a big gap, but the whole Zi family was more shocked at this time. The value of a 1 million bank card was the same as that of 1 million cash, but it did make people feel different. Of course, gold and silver jewelry was only a side dish. The real gifts were all in the boxes behind. In each box, there were 5 kinds of natural precious materials, such as spiritual herbs, bracelets, and even a dagger. Zilong and Zihu suddenly stood up in astonishment. Holy object. 5? Amazing. At the scene, all the martial artists of the Zi family all gasped and spoke out one after another. My God, 5 holy objects. This is unbelievable. This gift is so expensive. It's a big deal. It's absolutely big. Zhang Han's parents are so powerful. They're too generous. Awesome. Are they also martial artists? So sincere. I can see that they are also very optimistic about this marriage. The voice of discussion rang from the crowd. Everyone in the Zi family, whether they were martial artists or not, they knew the value of holy objects. So the eyes of the people present moved slowly between Zhang Guangyu and the treasures. Ziqian was at a loss. After taking a few deep breaths, he calmed down, looked at Zhang Han, Ziyan, the treasures. Finally, he fixed his eyes on Zhang Guangyu and said with a smile, they are too expensive for us to accept. After he became the patriarch of the family, he gradually got in touch with the martial arts world. Now he knew that the holy objects were almost priceless. The lowest price of them was nearly 1 billion yuan, and the highest might be 10 billion yuan. How much are the 5 holy objects in total? However, Zhang Wengyu's next words made him a little dumb, and then he felt proud. Zhang Wengyu said, the treasures are precious, but they are not as important as your daughter. We like Yan very much. No matter what the bride price is, it just represents our love for her. Right. Ziqian held Zhang Wengyu's hand in his. You are right. My daughter is the most valuable. I accept the gifts. Zhao Feng and others put the boxes on one side and were warmly welcomed to the dining table by the Zi family. Papa, when do we start eating? I'm hungry. All of a sudden, a small voice of inquiry rang out beside Zhang Han. Many people didn't hear that, but Zhang Wengyu, Rong Jiali, and people at the same table all heard clearly. Let's have dinner now and let the kitchen start serving hot dishes. Ziqian waved quickly. At this time, there were only a few cold dishes on the table, and the special food had not yet been served. Under the command of Ziqian, several high-salary chefs began to work. The dishes were served, and before the others moved their chopsticks, Zhang Han directly helped Meng with some food she liked. Seeing the stewed chicken, Zhang Han directly put the tenderest chicken wings into Meng's bowl. Enjoy it. Zhang Han moved his chopsticks several times and said to Meng with a smile. There were many children present. They looked at Meng enviously and then turned to their parents. The result was nothing happened. Considering their own images, many people would not move chopsticks in advance on such occasions. Zhang Han certainly didn't care. His behavior might be selfish to others, but Zhang Han was willing to be selfish because he would never upset Meng. In addition to the people of these two families, there were Zilong, Zihu, and Chen Chenking at this table. No one cared about Zhang Han's behavior, and they even wanted to help Meng with the dishes. Come on, let's have a good drink today. Ziqiang poured Zhang Guangyu a cup of rare liquor enthusiastically. Well, have a drink. Zhang Guangyu smiled and looked at Gai Xingkong. Gai, just call me Old Gai. Old Gai, come on, everyone is happy today. Drink more and rest at home when you are drunk. Ziqiang was very enthusiastic to pour liquor for everyone. Zhang Han was surprised by Gai Xingkong's expression when he looked at his glass, which was so funny. Was Uncle Gai defeated by my father again in drinking? Ah? Gai Xingkong felt embarrassed. Not at all. Not at all? Zhang Guangyu smiled. It seems that you are not convinced. When did I admit defeat? Last time, it was just because my internal injury was not healed. Gai Xingkong felt wronged. This time they were going to compete in drinking again. However, something disappointing happened before they started. Through the French windows, they saw that 7 or 8 people of the Zi family were retreating. In front of them, there were more than a dozen men in different clothes, and their leader was a man in a white t-shirt with tattoos on his arms. He kicked the man in front of him and said something. The several people from the Zi family couldn't stop them, and they soon approached the dining hall. Zilong frowned. The Liu family? It's too much for them to come here at this time. Among the members of the Zi family, there were also some martial artists. Although their level was not high with the strongest at the peak strength stage, it was not easy to suppress them unless the other side were all martial artists at a higher level. Zilong's eyes were fixed on the 2 people behind the tattooed man with a flat-top haircut. They were calm and indifferent and didn't pay attention to those martial artists of the Zi family at all. Soon, Zilong and Zihu made a response. They stood up and strode toward the door, but the speed of the other side was faster. The tattooed man pushed open the door and saw Zilong and Zihu. A trace of fear flashed through his eyes. Although the Liu family could easily defeat the Zi family, the man dared not to provoke Zilong and Zihu, but he knew for sure that they dared not do anything to him here. Master Zi, what's your decision? Today is the last day. Give me an answer. The tattooed man looked at Ziqiang with arrogance. Zhang Han frowned. Zhang Guangyu and Gai Xingkong put down their glasses and their faces darkened. Shen Qingqing smiled coldly. Ziqiang felt embarrassed and angry. My new relatives are visiting us. Why are you making trouble at this time? I can promise you, but is it inappropriate for you to come here now? Ziqiang endured the anger in the heart and maintained a calm face. However, before he finished speaking, Feng, Zhang Han said flatly. Swish. Zhao Feng stood up in an instant and strode to those people. His face was a little cold, signaling danger. The tattooed man could not control the situation, because Zhao Feng gave him a lot of pressure. He could see from the eyes that the other party was a decisive person. At this time, a calm man in a suit behind the tattooed man took 2 steps forward, cupped his hands, and said, You must be Zhang Han Yang. We chose to come here at this time for asking Master's opinion and visiting you. Elder Liu Kong of the Liu family has heard of you. If it's convenient for you, you can go to the Liu family and have a chat with him. Liu Kong? Gai Xingkong was attracted by the name. He had heard of this man. Liu Kong was powerful for reaching the Earth Realm stage many years ago. Zilong whispered something, and Gai Xingkong's face changed. Liu Kong has made a breakthrough. Simple words had heavy meaning. Their opponent now was in Heaven Realm. Even Zhang Guangyu slightly raised his eyebrows. An opponent who has recently reached the Heaven Realm? The man in the suit who had asked the question was also a Chi Strength Master and remained calm at this time. Seeing the elder's name frightened the other side. He sneered secretly. The strong dragon couldn't defeat the local snake, and moreover, the other side was not a strong dragon at all. Maybe they were famous before, but now they were nothing after the opening of the world lit. He sneered to himself, but his expression was still calm. Since Patriarch agrees, please come with us and sign the 3 transfer contracts. Our Patriarch will personally escort you back. I guess you understand the importance of getting along well with the Liu family. The plain tone made Ziqiang even angrier. This was a kind of contempt and disdain. Nevertheless, when Ziqiang was about to say something, Zhang Han gave Meng Meng a small cup of coconut milk and said calmly, "Liu family, never heard of it." Boom. Many people present were surprised by his words. They realized Zhang Han's attitude represented by his words at this time. Zhao Feng's eyes were getting colder. The man in a suit was very angry and sneered, "You'd better get lost." Zhao Feng only said 2 words. At the same time, his spiritual force crazily burst out and no one was able to speak anymore. The Lius retreated and were driven out by Zhao Feng. They were gradually away from the sight of people in the dining hall. Those who had soul sense in the presence knew exactly what was going on. Zhao Feng was so fast. Crack, crack. One after another, crackles rang. The dozen people, except an ordinary man, were all paralyzed on the ground. There was even no time for their screams to be heard. Chapter 728, Taking Action. "Leave and bring your men with you," Zhao Feng shouted. Zhao Feng glanced coldly at the person at the end of the line and turned to leave. 12 out of the 13 people present were seriously injured, while the remaining one escaped unscathed. Of course, the one who was unscathed had deliberately not been touched by Zhao Feng so he could cart away his injured men. 20 meters behind Zhao Feng stood the members of the Zi clan who had blocked the opponents before. At this moment, they were all confused. They looked at each other, but no one said anything. This guy is so violent. One of them was still in a dazed state when Zhao Feng left. Oh no, the LV family will definitely not take their defeat lying down. Since they were hurt by Zhao Feng and his companions, a shiver ran down everyone's spines when they heard those words. However, they were not too worried. After pondering for a while, they shook their heads in succession. Forget it. Now that they chose to take action, they must have drawn up a plan. After all, the son-in-law of our Zi clan is Zhang Han Yang. With him and Emperor King around, it will be impossible for the LV family to air their grievances. Frankly speaking, the members of that clan are excessively arrogant. That's right. Since the patriarch did not air his views, we do not need to be troubled about such things. They felt relieved after chatting with each other for a while. In their view, they did not need to be concerned about their safety as those who were stronger than them would throw themselves into the breach. Seeing what Zhao Feng did, Zhang Wenyu glanced at Zhang Han and nodded in satisfaction. Great. What does he mean? Everyone present was aware that he considered Zhao Feng to be a good man. It was Zhao Feng who managed all the affairs on Mount New Moon. Apart from being decisive enough while facing enemies, he would always ensure there was a way out at the same time. Since these badly wounded people were only minions, a certain amount of martial art resources could help them recover. If he killed them directly, the two parties were bound to grow apart. He, therefore, decided to take action in accordance with the opponent's attitude. Zhang Guangyu was a gallant man who was not a coward. Now that the opponents bullied his group, he definitely had to teach them a lesson. However, he deemed that they did not need to die at this point. If they were provoked again in the future, then they would be killed. Perceiving that Zhao Feng was a careful and decisive man, Zhang Wenyu praised him. Obviously, he held an optimistic attitude toward his son's disciple. Ouch, I did not expect that he's really fit for this job. Interesting. Wang Xiao, who was sitting at the table nearby, grinned. He looked down upon indecisive people and Zhao Feng left a good impression on him. In fact, they would absolutely be dumbfounded once they learned of Zhang Han's way of handling such affairs. Alas! Ziqiang sighed all of a sudden with annoyance in his eyes. He did not say anything, but raised his glass while shaking his head. In-law, old guy, come on, let's have a drink. Okay. The three of them clinked their glasses. Gulp. Gai Xingkong and Zhang Guangyu finished 100 grams of liquor in one go, respectively. Puff. Ziqiang became somewhat confused. What is going on? What did I say just now? Have a sip or finish a glass of liquor? They all drained their cups. Ouch. I just proposed a toast, didn't I? Oh my god. What shall I do? Slurp, slurp. Ziqiang managed to endure burning sensation, gulping the liquor down. In-law, drink slowly. Old Gai and I can drink a lot, but you don't have to keep us with us. Just take a sip. Zhang Wenyu said hurriedly. Ziqiang, however, gulped down the first glass of liquor, which made Xian and Zixiniu looked on helplessly. But it did not matter. Once he got drunk, he would no longer be upset. It's okay, I must drink the first cup and I'll drink slowly then. Ziqiang's face started turning red and a blast of hot air hit him after the burning sensation dissipated. He unbuttoned the collar of his shirt as he spoke. Great. Zhang Guanyu burst into laughter and gestured to Gai Xinkong, as he finished another cup of liquor. What? Ziqiang had just unbuttoned his collar and became totally stunned. How could they drink such a large amount of liquor, one cup after another? In-law, were those people talking about business matters? Zhang Guanyu asked. Yes, to tell you the truth, their family is indeed powerful. The rapid improvement of our clan's capital might have made them envious. Ziqiang replied depressedly. It's mainly because of their elder's return. Zilong shook his head slightly and said, what happened just now has actually stopped us from retreating. Let it go, for Mr. Gai's sake, they will show respect for us. As for us, we'll give up what should be given up. He also felt helpless, for he did not know how to fight against the experts at the Heaven Realm stage. He had no way out in the face of absolute power. Fortunately, Zhao Feng did not kill them. Otherwise Zilong and Zihu would not have been able to stay calm. A group comprising of Zhang Han Yang, Emperor King, Gai Xinkong, the warlord of Chan clan who had not come over yet and Wang who could offer help, would apparently be terrifying. Although the LV family was formidable and ran their business in Hua Nation, they respected them more or less. For the sake of safety, they were willing to pay more money. He surmised that Zhang Guanyu was probably a martial artist, but he could not confirm that. Besides, his words also represented what the martial artists of the Ziclan thought. But the instant he finished speaking, Zhang Guanyu waved his hand. Why should you abandon such treasures? They did act like bandits. Rest assured, as your in-law, I will not let anyone bully you. Brother Zhang, it's so kind of you. Ziqiang was drunk as he spliced the main brace hurriedly. When he heard Zhang Guanyu's words, he was so touched that he patted his chest and took the lead in raising his glass. Glang! They clinked their glasses. Ziqiang intended to take a sip and asked them to drink slowly, but, gulp, both Zhang Guanyu and Gai Xinkong tossed off their drinks in one gulp. Ziqiang was completely startled. Why did their faces not change color even after drinking 3 glasses of liquor in a row? Now that they are drinking in this way, can I keep taking small sips? He felt a little embarrassed and intended to bite the bullet and start drinking to keep up with them. However, at this moment, Zhang Han said with a smile, Father-in-law, my father and Uncle Gai can drink a lot, so you don't need to drink like them. That's right, Dad. The true meaning of drinking doesn't lie in the quantity but in the happiness it brings. It's okay for Uncle Zhang and Uncle Gai to drink a little more, but you're bad at drinking, therefore, you should drink less, or in a few minutes, you will get totally drunk and fall flat on your face. Xian did not say it aloud initially, because she was convinced that her father knew when to stop. Ahem. Ziqiang gave up showing off and put down the glass after taking a sip. Actually, he let out a sigh of relief when he heard their advice. I'm embarrassed about this. I'm not capable of drinking a lot, so it's better that I drink slowly. I'm interested in playing Go at ordinary times and I've only met Han's match in a contest many years ago. Really? I'm good at playing Go as well. Zhang Guanyu chuckled and said, let's play Go after we finish drinking. Great. Ziqiang laughed rejoicingly. Seeing this, Zilong and the others shook their heads helplessly. They were drinking merrily even though the problems had not been solved yet. It appeared to be true that the liquor could relieve stress. They, therefore, did not mention it, hoping not to dampen their moods. But it was Zhang Wenyu who brought it up first. Finding that Ziqiang was not quite drunk yet, he asked. In fact, business is not complicated, in-law. I have something to tell you in advance. Okay, go ahead. Yan once told me that your clan used to be in Hua Nation. I wonder if you have plans to go back and develop your business. Zhang Guanyu asked. Going back to develop our business? Ziqiang was stunned and did not know how to answer. I have not decided yet. I'm willing to do so, but our clan is so big that I have to take other people's feelings into consideration. Actually, I think it's a good idea. The LV family is now like a mountain over our heads, so we would be under great pressure if we stay here. Zihu sighed. Hearing what he said, several martial artists from the Zi clan nodded. LV Kong was able to destroy the whole Zi clan single-handedly. Possessing superb strength, he came out top among the martial artists in Singapore, and several of his old friends were too formidable to be defeated. Frankly speaking, as long as they gave an order, the Zi clan could not survive in Singapore. They surmised that Zhang Wenyu mentioned the matter in advance on account of its seriousness. However, that was not the case. Zhang Wenyu raised his eyebrows at this time. I'm not worried about the LV family, for their leader is just at the heaven early stage. Besides, the worldlet is so small that there are neither blessed regions nor peaks. It's completely of no significance. What? Zilong and Zihu froze. What did he say? Catching sight of their expressions, Zhang Guanyu shook his head slightly and released a hint of his aura. Boom! Like a huge crash of thunder, it hit the two men directly on their chests. The pressure rendered them breathless. And me. Wang Xiao also let out a hint of his aura. Boom! The two of them trembled again. What an astonishing pressure! What was going on? Both of them were a little stunned and looked at Zhang Guanyu in confusion. In the meantime, all the people around quietened down except Meng Meng, who was enjoying the lunch. Her bowl was always filled with delicious food. I'm from the Heavenly Knights sect. Zhang Wenyu said calmly. Boom! Zilong and Zihu became dumbfounded again. The Heavenly Knights sect? To be exact, he is in charge of the Heavenly Knights sect. Wang Xiao reminded them coldly. Kaboom! The two men's faces turned pale. They looked at Zhang Wenyu in disbelief. What they heard came as a total shock to them. He was from the Heavenly Knights sect and the Heavenly Knights sect belonged to him. I seem to have uncovered a secret. Zilong said in a daze. So, you don't have to worry. Zhang Wenyu got back to the point. The LV family is not a big deal. The restaurant quietened down again. After a while, Zihu gave a wry smile and said, Fine, I'm really astonished. It's so scary. That's why I offered the proposal before. You should know what I mean, that is, the danger lies in other aspects. If others learn that Han and Yan are going to get married, Before Zhang Wenyu finished his words, Zilong quickly replied, That's right, this matter should be of concern. Patriarch, I think we're supposed to plan our schedule. The battle between the Heavenly Knights sect and the Wind Snow School was world famous. Zilong was also very clear that Zhang Guanyu enjoyed a high position in the Heavenly Knights sect, judging from what Wang Xiao said before. Considering that his son and Ziyan were about to get married, the Zi clan would likely be destroyed by some masters once they were targeted. Chapter 729, Meeting Parents-in-Law. What? It was Ziqiang who was dumbfounded at this moment. Although he did not know what he meant, he considered Zilong as a steady man, whose words would give him cause to reflect on them. Money is valuable provided that we're alive. Instead of staying here, we'd better follow Han, which will be much safer. What's more, since we offended the LV family, giving up some property before leaving is also a good choice for us. Zilong said slowly. He gave an indeed pertinent suggestion. LV Con was not a good man, so he was not willing to accept the decision that the Zi clan made to give up a lot of their property and leave. However, he made a prompt decision when he heard about the Heavenly Knights sect and its opponent, namely the Wind Snow School. They would not be worried if Zhang Guangyu was an ordinary disciple of the Heavenly Knights sect, but he was obviously not. Besides, Zhang Han and Xian planned to hold a wedding ceremony. In this way, everyone would learn about the affairs of the Zi clan. You may as well discuss this with your clansmen. Zhang Guangyu smiled and said, even if you're about to leave, you have to leave in fine style. After saying that, Zhang Guangyu began to talk about domestic trivialities as more and more people at the table joined the chat. Rong Jiali, Rong Jiaxin, Xuanhuan and Dongling had great fun, while Zixia, Xian, Zif and Zhang Li had a great time chatting with each other. As for Zhang Han, he was focused on picking choice pieces of food for Meng Meng, while chatting with her in a low voice. With the liquor being drunk in large quantities, everyone at the table were in high spirits and the pressure brought by the LV family soon dissipated. Zilong's and Zihu's faces turned red as well. They looked really excited. Damn it. The Heavenly Knights sect is so powerful that the LV family definitely fails to hold a candle to it. Their moods lightened, but some of the others were clearly not happy. Meanwhile, more than a dozen people laid down in the yard of the LV family's residence in the downtown area of the Eastern District. In front of these men were many martial artists from the LV family and the Patriarch's face was a ghastly shade of pale. Patriarch, we should not tolerate their provocation at this time. They actually dare to take action since our elder has just returned after making a breakthrough. They are ignoring the majesty of our elder. I think so. In fact, if Ziki abdicates his position in the Chamber of Commerce, the Zi clan will gain handsome assets even though they may be reduced by half. However, they were so greedy that they did not intend to give in and even hurt our clansmen. I'm afraid that we will be a laughing stock if we don't take any action. How could we simply allow these people who are of no consequence to slander us? Hearing what they said, Patriarch LV looked on calmly and said slowly, I won't leave the matter at that. Prepare a car now. I'm going to the old house and ask my third uncle for help. Patriarch LV's words inspired all the people of the family. LV Kong, the Patriarch's third uncle, was a heaven state strong. They were all aware that the family's supremacy would be felt throughout the whole world soon. Therefore, many people of the LV family began to take action. They were convinced that the Zi clan was doomed even if Zhang Han Yang and his men gave a hand. Neither Zhang Han Yang nor Emperor King could bear comparison with a heaven state strong, who could kill them easily. This group of people had been waiting to celebrate, however, they never imagined that out of the group of people they sent, only one came back safe and sound, while the rest were seriously injured, which completely stunned them. In the restaurant in the Zi clan's mansion, Ziqiang was sozzled as his face turned red a few moments later. He stood up unsteadily, raised his glass that contained some liquor and said with a smile, Hick, I've got news for you. My daughter, Xian, is going to get married. Hick, the ceremony is on. He could not remember the specific date at this point, so he looked at Xuanhuan seated beside him. She reminded him with resignation. Oh, that's right, it is on September 9th. Which means their love will last forever. It will be held in Hong Kong. Ah, my daughter is going to hold a wedding in Hong Kong. Let's propose a toast. Ziqiang drained the last dregs of his liquor while speaking. Then he staggered and finally collapsed on the chair. Ouch, in-law, stop drinking liquor and take some tea now. Zhang Guangyu hurriedly stretched out his right hand to support him. I am not drunk. Drinking tea is impolite. We'll be family in the future. Brother Zhang, this is the first time you are here, so I must do the honors. Come on, pour liquor for me. Ziqiang glanced at Xuanhuan. Well. Xuanhuan rolled her eyes at him, picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for him. Eh? Ziqiang sized his glass up in a daze. This is not liquor. Beer. Oh, come on, in-law, let's drink some more. Ziqiang raised his glass. Zhang Guangyu, Gaixingkong, Zilong and Zihu also drank a glass of liquor. There were about 20 to 30 empty bottles on the table. As for Zhang Guangyu and the other men, they looked unperturbed, except for having a slight headache. Actually, They could run their spiritual force to expel the effects of the wine if they wanted to, but they did not do that. Instead, they enjoyed the happiness brought on by the alcohol. Since that Ziqiang was drunk and about to fall asleep after finishing a cup of tea, Xian pursed her lips and looked at Zhang Han. Why don't I take father-in-law to have a rest? Zhang Han suggested. I will do it. When he heard what he said, Zihu stood up and helped Ziqiang back to the villa. Then, it was Zishiya's father's turn to drink with them. He truly knew his limit and stopped drinking after having some beer. Accompanied by Zilong and some members of the Zi clan, Zhang Guangyu and the other masters drank to their heart's content. As for Wang Xiang, he exchanged a few words with Zhang Guangyu after having a meal and then left in a hurry. Papa, I'm full. Sitting between Zhang Han and Xian, Meng looked up at Zhang Han and said this several minutes after she finished eating. Would you like to go out to play? Zhang Han asked with a smile. Great. Meng responded with a giggle. Zhang Han's suggestion fitted in exactly with her wish. Let's go. Zhang Han stood up and took Meng's little hand. After jumping down from the chair, Meng held Xian's hand and said, Mama, we're going to play. Yes. Xian nodded slightly. I'll go with you. Zishiya had been waiting for them for a long time and could not sit still anymore. Shall we also take a stroll? Zif looked at Zhang Li. Let's go. So, all the young people present went out and wandered around the manor of the Zi clan. Zhao Feng followed them, fiddled with his mobile phone for a few minutes and then said with a grin. Meng Kai and her brother are coming. Okay. Zhang Li pursed her lips and replied. In fact, she was already aware of this. She had been very anxious since she came out of the restaurant. Will my dad tear Liang Hao apart? She was so scared. Zhang Li was still worried after thinking for a while, so she glanced at Zhang Han and said, Ahem, brother? What? Zhang Han pretended not to understand her intention. Brother? Zhang Li called Zhang Han again. What's the matter? Zhang Han answered with a smile. You're playing dumb. No, I'm not. Didn't you hear what Zhao Feng said? Yes. You are not aware yet? What do you mean? Xian burst out laughing after hearing what they said. She stared at Zhang Han with her beautiful eyes and said, well, stop joking, Lilai, I'll put in a good word for you when he comes. It's none of my business. Zhang Li said angrily, why do I worry so much? It's all Liang Hao's fault. He actually can't win my father's favor. If she revealed her true feelings, it would make the others laugh. After strolling for less than half an hour, they saw the two figures coming over quickly. They were Liang Hao and Liang Mengkai. Zhao Feng missed her very much as he had not seen her for many years. He, therefore, quickly walked toward her with a smile. Mengkai. He could not wait to hug her. As for Liang Mengkai, she was smiling in the distance, her bright eyes sparkling. Obviously, she also missed Zhao Feng very much. But there was something more urgent now. Liang Mengkai reached out her hand and patted Zhao Feng on the chest. Wait a minute, I have some questions. What are Lilai and the boss's parents like? Are they easygoing? Did my brother leave a bad impression on them? What kind of people do they like? Zhao Feng was speechless in the face of such questions. So, he spread his hands and said, I'm not quite sure. Auntie Rong is very gentle, while Uncle Zhang is indeed heroic. Alas, it's useless to ask you. Liang Mengkai shook her head and held Zhao Feng's hand, following Liang Hao to the place where Zhang Han and the others were. Lilai, I am here. Liang Hao was so nervous that he was totally at a loss for words when he approached her. He, therefore, only greeted her anxiously. Seeing his behavior, Zhang Li comforted him. Don't be nervous, my parents are very nice. Besides, my brother and sister-in-law will put in a good word for us. The two of them were in a long and happy relationship. Liang Hao, as a gentleman, always complied with Zhang Li's wishes on their trips and choices of food. Just like Zhao Feng and Liang Mengkai, except for sleeping together, they had done all the things that couples did. Moreover, Considering that Zhao Feng had already been approved by the Liang clan, Liang Hao felt so stressed. He took a deep breath and looked at Zhang Han. "Thank you, brother. Thank you, sister-in-law. You're welcome." Xian shook her head slightly. As for Meng Meng, she raised her little head and waited for 2 seconds. Finding that Liang Hao stopped speaking, she pouted and asked, Why didn't you thank me too?" Clatter. When they heard what she said, everyone present did not know whether they should laugh or cry. Liang Hao wiped the sweat from his forehead and said hurriedly, "Thank you, Meng Meng." Meng Meng was satisfied and giggled again. Meng Meng was good at enlivening the atmosphere. As long as the little princess giggled, everyone around her would feel comfortable. Generally speaking, people liked all manner of wonderful things, including nice people. Liang Hao laughed and felt less tense. "Let's go and see your parents-in-law." Zhang Han glanced at Liang Hao. He was a brave man and a handsome one too. A few days ago, he fought with Ah Hu in Hong Kong when Mount New Moon was in danger and was seriously injured. Learning about his condition, the Liang clan asked him to recuperate, therefore, he rested for a period of time. Most importantly, Zhang Han wanted to improve his strength. Furthermore, the Liang clan could obtain some martial arts resources every once in a while. They went to the restaurant following Zhang Han's remark. Generally speaking, it took about half an hour to finish a meal, or even a few minutes. However, the dinner would last longer if a people drank together. It was normal to drink for an hour or two, if they wanted to drink to their heart's content. The length of the dinner would be uncertain. When they arrived at the restaurant, there were fewer people inside, for all the young members of the Zi clan had left. "They're my parents," Zhang Li reminded Liang Hao in a low voice. Gulp. Liang Hao swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His heart started beating faster and even his palms were covered in sweat. He was so nervous. Chapter 730, Winning Favor Preliminarily. Zhang Han led the way to the dining table. As he got closer and closer, Liang Hao, who stood nearby, became more and more anxious. This was because he saw that Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali, namely Lilai's parents, were staring at him. Zhang Guangyu even had an indifferent look on his face. Rong Jiali's expression could not be seen as it was hidden by her bamboo hat, while Gai Xingkong was still smiling without saying anything. Perhaps under normal circumstances, Zilong and Zihu would say, "This is Liang Hao, a pretty good boy." But at this point, they all kept quiet since they did not dare to comment casually on their daughter's marriage. In their view, not every son-in-law was as outstanding as Zhang Han. Therefore, catching sight of them, several people at the table stopped chatting in succession and the restaurant fell silent. Since everyone was looking at him, Liang Hao felt even more nervous. But a person like Liang Hao would not be at a loss in such a stressful situation for long, and he instantly became more attentive. Before Zhang Han introduced his parents, Liang Hao took 2 steps forward rapidly. He came to the table and bowed to Zhang Guangyu and Rong Jiali. "Nice to meet you, Uncle Zhang and Auntie Rong. My name is Liang Hao, and I'm Lilai's boyfriend." "Oh?" Zhang Han chuckled at this time and deemed that his gutsy move would win his father's favor. Zhang Han sat at the table again while pondering over this and gave Meng Meng a small glass of juice. The little girl was thirsty after frolicking for more than half an hour, so she began to drink slowly. As she drank, she stared at Liang Hao with her big bright eyes. She did not know what he was doing. The others took their seats in succession, eventually only leaving Liang Hao and Zhang Li standing beside the table. 10 seconds after Liang Hao greeted them, Zhang Guangyu gave a bland response. "It's too early for you to formalize your relationship." Zhang Han could tell that his father was somewhat worried and out of sorts. But his sister had taken a fancy to Liang Hao at this point. After thinking for a while, he reminded Liang Hao, "Did you prepare a gift since it is the first time that you are meeting my parents?" Liang Hao's expression changed when he heard what Zhang Han said. He, therefore, secretly bit the tip of his tongue and forced himself to calm down. He had prepared some gifts, but he figured that Zhang Guangyu would not receive them if he took them out directly. Once he was refused, it would become more awkward. Anyway, he had to get through his test. After seeing plenty of liquor bottles behind him from the corner of his eyes, he knew what Zhang Han meant. He picked up a glass and filled it up. He bowed and held the glass with both hands, saying, "It's the first time we are meeting. Nice to meet you, Uncle Zhang." After saying that, he drained the liquor in his glass. The liquor was of good quality. Although he was a martial artist, he did not dare to cheat. As such, he felt his throat and stomach burning. Actually, he did not have lunch yet. However, Zhang Guangyu still ignored him, although he drank the glass of liquor. He had already known what would happen, but he still felt uncomfortable at this moment. There was a sudden deathly hush again. Liang Hao was a little confused. It was no exaggeration to say that he was in a state of panic, since he did not know Uncle Zhang's temperament. They did not dare to say anything more. 1 second, 2 seconds. 10 seconds later, Zhang Li said reproachfully, "Dad." It was her words that made Zhang Wengyu's face soften a little. Meanwhile, Rong Jiali nudged his leg with her foot and said, "Liang Hao, sit down, Lilai has told me about you." Rong Jiali's gentle tone eased the tension and Liang Hao sat opposite them, together with Zhang Li. "Stop talking about that." Zhang Guangyu waved his hand and glanced at Liang Hao. "You only greeted me, but there are a lot of people here." "Oh, that's right." Liang Hao had quick wits. Now that Zhang Guangyu had responded to him, he was supposed to make the cut. He quickly stood up and filled his glass with liquor again. "Nice to meet you, Auntie Rong." Gulp. He drank it in one gulp. "Everyone else knows me, but I still have to introduce myself formally. My name is Liang Hao, Zhang Li's boyfriend. Brother, a toast to you. I would not have met Lilai without you. Sister-in-law. We're old friends. Thanks to you, Lilai and I are in a stable relationship. A toast to you. Liang Hao almost drank about half a liter of liquor after toasting everyone present. If he was an ordinary person like Ziqiang, he would have fainted already. Even so, Liang Hao's face became a little ruddy. After he toasted everyone, he sat down. Then, he filled the glass with liquor once again and raised it to Zhang Guangyu. "I'd like to propose a toast to Uncle Zhang. No matter who I am, whether I have money or not, whether I am powerful or not, I will be true to Lilai forever." "Okay, well, let's drink to that." Zhang Guangyu looked at Liang Hao with a nod. Then, he picked up the glass and drank it in one gulp. "Go ahead." After a glass of liquor, he filled it up and tossed it off again. Seeing what he did, Liang Hao made up his mind, pouring the liquor and drinking it all at once. The two of them directly drank 5 cups of liquor, respectively. Liang Hao's eyes turned red, but he continued to drink without saying anything. Zhang Li felt somewhat distressed. "Dad. Guangyu, it's enough." Gai Xingkong could not help reminding him. "All right, stop drinking already, let Liang Hao have some food first." Rong Jiali glared at Zhang Guangyu. Feeling depressed, Zhang Guangyu stopped pouring the liquor. He would really be bullying this junior if he insisted on drinking with him. But he truly felt uncomfortable and was not as delighted as when he saw Xian. After all, accepting a daughter-in-law was indeed different from marrying his daughter off to a man. Alas! Zhang Guangyu sighed inwardly while staring at Liang Hao. 2 seconds later, he said, "You're good at drinking, but I don't know what you are like. Time will reveal what is in a man's heart, Uncle Zhang." Liang Hao replied politely, "Good, I agree with you, time reveals a man's heart." Zhang Guangyu nodded and said in an unfriendly tone, "You seized the opportunity when we were not around Lilai. Now, I won't say anything. I'll investigate you for a period of time." Liang Hao, however, let out a long sigh of relief and said with a smile, "I have to propose a toast to Uncle Zhang. Thank you, thank you." He filled his glass with liquor and then took 2 steps sideways to fill Zhang Guangyu's glass. What he did amazed Zhang Guangyu to some degree. He silently raised his glass, drinking off with Liang Hao. "You'd better behave yourself during the investigation," Zhang Wenyu said. He was aware of what they were doing since his soul sense could cover a wide range. As such, he was worried that he would lose control of his temper and beat him up if he saw any affectionate contacts between them. "I see, Uncle Zhang, please be assured, I have never crossed the line even though I've been in a relationship with Lili for so long. Only when you come back and accept me can we further the relationship," Liang Hao answered with a smile. "It sounds better than it is." Zhang Wengyu's face was unreadable as he glanced at Zhang Han. "Son, come out and have a walk with me. You can stay here." "Well, okay." Zhang Han realized that he should take some responsibility to help relieve his father's stress. So, the two of them stood up. Meng Meng wanted to follow them, but she stayed to drink juice after Xian whispered to her. During this period, she even muttered, "I want to eat potato chips with tomato flavor." The two of them walked out. At this moment, Liang Hao felt somewhat embarrassed. "All right, that is exactly what my father is and you will understand him later. Anyway, he cannot bear to part with his beloved daughter." Zhang Li comforted him. She actually intended to comfort her father, for she also had mixed feelings. Liang Hao shook his head slightly. "I see, at least I've passed the test preliminarily, which can be regarded as a successful beginning. As for Ong Jiali," she said with a smile, "now that you chose to date each other, you should cherish every second. We cannot hone in on your affection." "Liang Hao, is your family also in Hong Kong?" "Yes, I've always been," Liang Hao replied in a hurry. Liang Hao felt great while chatting about his family affairs with her. Phew. Liang Mengkai was eventually relieved. She was so anxious just now. Although Liang Hao was a little drunk, she thought drinking more was needed since he won their approval. She still remembered how Zhao Feng had been pushed to drink by her family in the first place. "I should take off my bamboo hat at our first meeting." Rong Jiali took off her bamboo hat while speaking. On seeing her face, Liang Mengkai could not help praising her repeatedly. "Auntie, you look so young, you look like you're only 30 years old." She spoke highly of Rong Jiali. Even Liang Hao said with a nod, "Uncle Zhang looks very young as well. In fact, my family planned to visit you after learning that you have returned, but after thinking over it, they decided to see you later considering that you would like to talk to the elders of the Zi clan first. If it's convenient, they'd like to visit you at night or tomorrow." "Auntie Rong, do you think it's a good idea?" "Okay, it's a great idea, you can come at any time." Rong Jiali smiled. "Fine." They began to chat with each other again. Finding everyone was in high spirits, Gai Xingkong and Zilong also said, "Liang Hao is one of the best in the young generation of the Liang clan, he's so brilliant." Hearing what they said, Liang Hao did not know whether to laugh or cry. He considered himself as an excellent man in the past, for he increased greatly the profits when running his family business. However, he was devastated since the trip to Hong Kong. Was he outstanding? The answer depended on his opponents. Brother Zhang was a really excellent man. There was no denying that he regarded Zhang Han as his idol now. At this time, his idol could only smile in the face of Zhang Wenyu. "Dad, I've observed Liang Hao for a long time. He's a man with good moral quality, otherwise, I would not have allowed him to contact Lili. Alas." Zhang Wenyu sighed, "You don't understand." After saying that, Zhang Wenyu shook his head and added, "You'll understand what I mean in the future. Even if I learn that he is a good man in advance, I cannot help losing my temper when I thought of Lili marrying someone else. You are a father now and have a daughter. In the future, no one will dare to seduce my daughter." Zhang Han gave a firm response immediately. "What?" Zhang Wenyu was stunned. "If someone covets my daughter, he must defeat me first. I have been cultivating for a year and will soon reach the innateness stage with a stable foundation. It won't take long for me to break through the elixir stage and the Yuan Ying stage. I'd like to see who dares to covet my daughter." Zhang Han said angrily. "Eh?" Zhang Wenyu was startled again. What's going on? I asked you to come out to comfort me. Why are you getting angry?